This is ResiWeek, the weekly look at the residential segment of the AV industry. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us, the madam of covering all things AV. Her name is Julie Jacobson from CE Pro. How are you, ma'am?
Hello.
Last time I saw you, you were in beautiful Amsterdam. It's a good show. So she was at ISC along with us. Also with us another guy I saw in Amsterdam, Paul Williams from Control 4. Welcome, sir.
Thanks, Tim. Pleasure to be here.
And last but not least, my buddy and pal and brother, Mr. Richard Fregosa from Fregosa Designs. Hello, sir.
Hey, mellow, damp West Coast greetings. We actually have rain for once. So,
wow.
Yeah, but in honor of that, right, you know what, it might as well have a Monday no pants.
Jeez, thank you for that.
Don't stand up. Don't stand up.
Good Lord. Don't stand up, Rich. Let's just not do that. All right, I think this is the third week in a row we're going to cover this story, and unless one of you three have something groundbreaking, we're just going to mention this until Hanhai / Foxconn signs the paper. Then we can talk about exactly what's going on. But according to the Japan Times, quote unquote, Hanhai may very well ink the Sharp deal on Monday. Now, understand that Japan is a few hours ahead of us, and they still haven't done so yet. They ran into a couple of issues, something like, I don't know, $3 billion in debt that Sharp suddenly had, or that Hanhai suddenly found. I don't know. But apparently, according to these sources and some other ones like Wall Street Journal and others, they're going to go ahead and go with this deal. They've upped Foxconn has upped the ante to about $6 billion and some change for the Sharp Group. Again, if it happens before the end of the show, we'll have folks comment on it. Otherwise, we're still waiting for Foxconn and all the wonderful people to come together as one. So, all right. A couple weeks ago, we had on Delia Hansen from Clare Controls, and the first actual story we're going to have comment on here is an interesting thing they've done. It's called the CLAQ Mini, and according to both them and also the story out of Residential Systems, this is their new controller, right? This is their base model, which is interesting because of the price point. It's also interesting because it's modular, right? Mr. Fregosa, we're going to kick it off with you here. You live and breathe inside the Residential Systems. Is this something that makes a whole lot of sense, either from the price point or also from the modularity, if that's a word, of the system?
Yeah, I think it's a natural, evolution of where we are going with systems, and you're going to always wind up taking two approaches. You're either going to go with a centralized approach, which has its pros and cons, and a decentralized approach. And I think what we're seeing more and more, especially trying to get into the market at different price points, and I mean, it's an IoT world. It's just that simple. And so this device that's coming out is another example from a established AV company coming in and saying, we have to follow this process. We have to find ways to make it more affordable, more accessible, give you just some of the features you want. It's almost like the freemium feature you get with apps at times. You know, you can get X for this amount, and if you want more, then you can graduate to the next part. And I mean, take a look at what all the manufacturers are doing right now. I mean, Clare isn't the only one. I mean, there's all of the major automation manufacturers have to do it. I think if they're not doing it, it's a fast way. And I said it more and more times than before. It's really possibly, they could be a Kickstarter away from that industry being completely overwhelmed. And so I think it's smart, and I think that they are targeting also. A younger demographic. I mean, what was it they were looking at the other day in terms of millennials? The amount of them that are actually considering home ownership is just plummeting drastically. Mm-hmm. So they do need something that, for somebody who may be in more of a transitive state, that they aren't going to be building a 4,000, 5,000 square foot house or even a 2,500 square foot townhouse. These are the guys that might be in and gals who might be in a 1,000 square foot condominium, and they want some of the creature comforts of it, but they don't necessarily want the expense of it. So I think it's a smart move. I think we're going to see more and more of it as time passes.
All right, Julie, I'll take the other side of this. Rich said they have to do it. Companies like this have to do it. Do they have to do it?
Well, Clare is a really interesting company, and I Delia is very forward-thinking. When she was in Crestron, we had talked about some of these new products and services that they're now launching at Clare. She's a clever cookie, and they're doing some cool things. Clare has always taken a modular approach to its home control systems. They have a very cool industrial design where you have stacking modules, and the bus just runs right through them. You just literally stack them on top of each other. My understanding from talking to Delia a couple days ago is that this piece will eliminate, they've had 3 versions of their CLAQ product. I think this one eliminates one of them and allows for some modularity, and I think the retail price is something like $400, or is that
$399.
$399, yeah, $400.
$399. And you know, it's some of the things Clare is doing on the back end. I'm sure I've talked about this in the past. Is that they're really building into their technology the ability for consumers to do a lot of the work for themselves. And even though they're using Z-Wave, which can be complicated, they're trying to get integrators and consumers themselves to use Clare's own Z-Wave products, because they really are purpose-built for Clare's own applications. You can get richer data from their Z-Wave devices than you can from third-party devices. And so consumers themselves can add these devices to their own networks. And the interesting thing is, even if the consumer buys directly from ClareControls.com, the dealer still gets credit for those sales. So, you know, despite their prices, despite their hardware, despite their functionality, they're doing some really interesting things on the back end from a business perspective.
Yeah. Paul, we'll bring you this on in on this. Not going to ask you about Clare specifically because they're a competitor of Control 4. But talk a little bit more about Richard's point about we live in an IoT world, right? Is this something that, as control manufacturers in general, that you guys have to consider yourself with?
Absolutely. I think that what we've seen in the last couple of years is this proliferation of all these devices that are coming into the environment, and people want a simple way to be able to control them. And so if you start there with all of these devices that are coming on the market, I can have an app literally for everything in my house. It would have its own separate app, and that's become very confusing. And it's not ideal, and it's certainly not technology at that end of the day. It becomes very complex and hard for people to work with that. And so we as manufacturers have had to pay attention to it. We're looking at what's happening out there. We're taking the good technologies. There's quite honestly some stuff out there you look at and it's IoT and you go, what in the heck would I need that for? What is its purpose in life? But there are some really cool things that we saw, especially at CES. Lots of great technologies that are coming out there, and we certainly want to embrace those. So manufacturers, much like Clare, and we've done the same thing as well, we're looking at those to be able to put them into a world where it makes the consumer in charge of those devices, not the other way around. And so that becomes simple for the homeowner to be able to interact with those pieces. And not only interact with those pieces, but have them use each other. So using a motion sensor from company A combined with a lighting product from company B, and have some infrastructure that puts those things together so they work in concert with each other based on motion sensing or time of day and it's really powerful, and we're certainly paying attention to that as well.
Right, very good.
I think if I can follow up with this, the interesting question here is something that manufacturers grapple with all the time, and something I just posted today about this crazy company called Mixity or something like that, and they've got this modular solution where you start with a 360-degree speaker that looks like Amazon Echo, and you add modules on top of those. And
I saw that. Is that the one that has the crazy lighting LEDs inside? And
with the olfactory, like,
yes,
I met with those guys. I met with those guys at CEDIA.
You know, I made fun of them in my home automation CES presentation. Because, I mean, this thing stacks up tall. I even have a picture of one of them with my cell phone, and it's big. But But the modularity, I think, is a really interesting concept, and it's not necessarily new, but manufacturers like Paul at Control 4 grapple with, well, do you go ahead and just put everything in a compact little box and charge $100, or do you start with a $50 box and add $50 at a time to increase functionality? And it's an interesting concept. Which one will keep the consumers engaged? Which one will consumers buy? And my hunch is that they're likely to start out with a $50 device that does one thing and add modules, literally or figuratively, hardware, software, on top of those.
Well, actually, Paul, I'll put it to you, and then I'll ask. I'll give a little bit answer to Julie, but you go first.
Yeah, I think the modular approach is interesting. There's certainly be said of, I make an investment in a product and I'm only using one function in it, yet I've outlaid an extreme amount of money for this thing, and there's 90 other functions that it has that I never needed in the first place. So I'm burdening the cost with those other 90 functions. But there's also some economies of scale that you get as a manufacturer out of building all these little devices there. I can also create a lot of market confusion, which is I now have this Chinese menu of things that I can buy in order for me to automate different solutions in my house. And there's a balance in there of how much do you add into that base product, and most of us in the industry call those controllers or platform pieces. How much do I add in that base product, and then let the rest of it be modular on top of that? And it's something that we continue to balance out quite a bit. Once again, you can over skew and SKU the environment by having too many out there. And as a consumer or as a dealer, I'm looking at it going, I don't even know anymore. I don't know what pieces I need to make this thing work. And I think that's one side of the spectrum. And the other side of the spectrum is I've got this box that does everything that it can possibly do, but it also costs like $4,000. And somewhere in between there, I think, is a happy medium. And we're still struggling with that. Something that we continue to look at all the time. Giving as much value as we can in the box, but at the same time lowering that cost, much like Clare has. And we've come up with some very, I think, attractive pricing in recent months for what we're doing there in the same time frame. So,
let me give you my 2 cents on that. So you take a look at kind of what a lot of people talk about as being modular, and that is the connectivity. Right, those are the modular pieces that we want to add on. Oh, I have a DVD player that doesn't do this, and I want to do an IR, or I have 232, or what have you. What I'm seeing is guys like Control 4 and others are saying, okay, here's a base model. It has an RJ45. It has network. It might have one IR and one 232, maybe. Then if you need to do more, if you have almost at this point legacy products that have, bidirectional 232, or you need to do IR, great. If not, that little RJ45 is going to get you the majority of what the smart homes are having right now, right? You want to talk to a Nest, you're not hooking it up to IR. You're not doing a relay. You're talking to it over the network. You want to do a smart TV, you're talking to it over the network. You want to do a smart head-end unit, you're talking to that thing over the network. So a lot of these modular pieces, to Julie's point, is probably going to end up being more software-driven than the individual. Let's stack more 232, or in the old not the old days, you can still do it with the Crestron Pro 3 and AV3. The card slots you could do. If you needed three more 232 ports, you just buy a card and slapped it in. That's their modular version of that. I'm seeing where they're starting with a network-centric piece, and then if you need physical connections that like the 232 or relay, what have you, that's what they're modularizing, I guess.
Can I throw in one quick point that kind of Paul really it kind of keyed in on what I was just thinking, is that a lot of what we're seeing is based on the existing business models that we've had in the custom installation industry for 25 years, and so one of the dangers, and again, I'm right in the heart of the Silicon Valley, so I mean, you can go to any, you can go into any office building, there's somebody pitching something new in terms of the technology and the hotbed in terms of the innovation, and I think what it is creating is an opportunity. I think personally, I mean, I still make my living on the bespoke industry. There's always going to be that purpose-built industry. Somebody's looking for a facilitator to guide them through the technology maze, like Paul was saying. They don't want the 15 different apps, and that's something that just doesn't work for them. They have a completely different focus, and there's somebody who comes in, and so the responsibility of the integrator and the especially on the Resi side is that shift towards being a technologist. There's also a completely different segment of humanity that doesn't know that this industry exists. These are the people who go up into a web browser and just type automation or IoT or something. And so these are this is a market segment that purchased 100 million mobile devices last quarter, right? They aren't necessarily the ones who bought, again, I mean, you've got some of these smaller companies who are doing $3 billion in annual sales. That's almost more than our industry when you add it all together. So it's a two-pronged approach that's going on, and I think and software is going to eat the world. I think what we are seeing is that there is an ability for these manufacturers to say, we have purpose-driven solutions. We're making them affordable. We're trying to approach a market that we haven't tapped into before. And most of it's been due to the time frame or the expertise necessary from the dealer network. So, this is just one of the early steps that we're going to see. Within the next few years, we will see, again, it's anything else that's going down the line is we're an IT-driven world. We're an IP-driven world. And as those legacy devices get phased out more and more, there will be this acceleration towards software development and then picking and choosing the different parts. Some parts work better than others with one another. Some of them play better than with one another. And so companies like Crestron, Control 4, Clare, all of these companies, they're the ones that are, kind of hanging their butts out over the edge right now, saying, you know what, somebody's got to do it. And so, I mean, if anything, I applaud them for it because it is going after a completely different market that the CI may not get to. But at least it's educating that market, so they may seek them out as their tastes become more refined.
You keep saying software is going to take over the world, and eventually it'll be true.
Eventually.
We all may be dead. But...
Excuse me.
All right.
One last comment. Sure. Real quick before we move on to the next thing. So to echo Rich, that's one of the things that we're certainly looking at is that you do have this undercurrent of the economy that's looking at these solutions and going, a point solution's fine. That's all I wanted. I wanted a sprinkler app, I wanted a door app, and I wanted to control a couple of lights, and I've got 3 apps, and I'm fine, and everything's good for me. And we certainly want to be paying attention to that, but we, as manufacturers, have had to be very cautious because so far the road's been paved with victims that have tried to enter into kind of that DIY space. And have been punished severely by it. You take a look at Wink and some of the others that have been out there. But it's a matter of time. I'm with you, Rich. I think it's a matter of time before that market develops into something. It's going to take some education. I think it's going to take some companies that find the right mix in there to maybe be able to bring those things together. But I do think there's a world where that starts to coalesce, where we have this higher end solution systems, and then you've got the kind of the lower end stuff that's coming up from that IoT and the DIY guys that come up through that. It's a matter of time. I don't think it's there and matured yet, but it is coming.
Uncle Richie, he says you're right. Just gonna put that out there. All right, some actually horrible news, absolutely horrible news, and God love Julie for posting it on my Facebook feed the other day. Bad news for movie servers. Slysoft is killing AnyDVD and AnyDVD HD. Quote unquote, due to recent regulatory requirements, we have had to cease all activities relating to Slysoft Inc. We wish to thank our loyal customers and clients for their patronage over the years. Now, if you're not familiar with AnyDVD, this isn't a commercial because, well, they don't exist anymore. It was a cool little platform, right? You opened up the software, you put your DVD in the computer, and you got to rip it. And they made several. You could make several different types of files out of your DVDs, right? They had different functions where you could eliminate all the menus and just put the movie on there. You could strip away the different languages, so you made the disc smaller. It was actually pretty cool. Yeah. So the movie industry has once again striked after they nailed Kaleidoscape. and now they've gone after these guys. Rich, is there a point here where we are going to be able to do, I don't know, what all four of us have done in the past, where made copies of tapes, for crying out loud, 100 years ago?
Bootleg tape. Well, the first thing that I got to say is, AnyDVD has left us, but long live Red Fox. Red Fox.
Hey, Red Box?
Red Fox.
Oh, Red Fox.
Red Fox, a couple of days ago, ironically enough, seems to have the Red Fox logo with AnyDVD on it.
Really?
And currently their forum site is up right now, bringing up information about AnyDVD software, with the promise that within the next few weeks, AnyDVD will be returning in a different format, headquartered out of Belize. So
okay.
The fox has a headband on him though. He's got a bandit stripe across his eyes.
Well, see, and here's the problem. He says Red Fox, and I think of Sanford and Son.
Exactly. Oh boy, about this. I have never been a fan of technology that has been managed by attorneys in litigation.
Amen, brother.
With that said, there is always going to be a fringe of the technology consumer that feels that, and I can't even say rightfully so or rightfully not, that, they've bought it, it's theirs. They own it. What they do with it is their own. The movie industry itself is after one thing, to protect itself. And is it consumer friendly? No, not really. It's movie industry friendly. So is there ever going to be a partnership in terms of technology that will allow it to be as friendly and as easy to use, when somebody grabs their media in whatever format it is to use it the way they see fit? No, they can't. We're seeing a little bit more in terms of digital rights management and the encryption methods, that at least it makes it a little less painful, that when you acquire the content, you can move it from one device over to the other. In the old days, AnyDVD was your only option, or a $30,000 Kaleidoscape player. There was nothing in between at that point. There was a couple of companies who would try. There was, one company, but the other one was a physical media company. You had Eschen, had their huge DVD changer system, which I had forever. We had 1,200 DVDs sitting in changers.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it was great. It was great. It was, when it finally died. It was a sad day in our household. We had to switch everything over and move to that content. But now with Ultraviolet, now with with Apple and all of these different formats and the streaming formats and the ability to share content, it's less of an impact than it used to be. Before, when you tried to get the DVD that you purchased and you were going to get it onto your tablet or take it with you, you didn't have bandwidth. You didn't have the pipes to be able to do it. It's like anything else. It's the passing of an era. They went through. They came out with the first Blu-ray.
Ripping software.
What would be the word? Yes. What? Yes. Yeah. Since they don't exist anymore, yes, they were Blu-ray ripping software. Format exchangers. So, I think it's 5, 6, 7 years ago was much bigger news. It would have been much bigger news than it is now. And I think that definitely piracy is not nearly as much of an issue anymore, because people just don't want to be bothered with it. The act of converting a DVD to a digital file is not fun, and unless you've got something that's doing it for you. But I have very fond memories of that little Red Fox and getting an update like every 4 hours about the software. So.
Yeah. All right, Paul. We'll start with you, and we'll end with Julie on here. How big of a deal is this?
I'll echo Rich. If we had gone back 5 years ago, it would have been a big deal, because that's what most people were doing. They had big NAS drives in their homes. They would purchase movies, hopefully legally, not from the red box, and then ripping them and putting them on the media on their drive, and then being able to watch those movies. More and more content's moved to the web. It's, in fact, if I talk to 100 people, I've talked to 1,000. That it's been a long time since many of those people have purchased a Blu-ray or a DVD. because they go out to iTunes, they go out to Netflix, and they Hulu, wherever it may be, and they get the content whenever they want it, wherever they want it, and that's changed significantly. I will say though, that undercurrent, as Rich was mentioning, Red Fox popped up, and that got a lot of attention real quickly, and I'm confident. The reality is, as much as the motion picture industry tries to throttle that, the more they actually entice an undercurrent to occur, is that you have the anti-establishment folks that are out there, and they're like, well, I'm going to find a way to make this happen, and someone will find a way. There's always going to be a way for you to take content that you get, I won't say always, but at least for the foreseeable future, take content that's located on a Blu-ray disc that you purchased, bring it home, and find some piece of software or some piece of hardware somewhere that somebody's going to create that allows you to take that content and put it on another device. It's the reality. The legalities of that are, not of question, because I think that's already been established, but that's the reality. But much less of a deal now than it was, 5 years ago, for sure.
Yeah. All right, Ms. Jacobson, we'll end with you on this one. How where do we go from here with the demise of Slysoft?
Well, I think it's a big deal. Previously all those offshore software piracy types of companies were off limits, and now there's ways to pressure them. I know the groups that shut down AnyDVD were going to the credit companies like PayPal and popular credit card companies and other payment schemes, and asking them or telling them not to accept payments for these types of products. So one thing we did learn about this event is that these offshore software companies are not impervious to these types of actions. Now they're going after DVD Fab, which is in China, which is harder to get to, but there are some indications that they will be able to shut that down. And the fact is that most movie servers in our channel are using or encouraging dealers and consumers to use AnyDVD or similar services. Now, in the bigger picture, it's pathetic, because these companies want to work with Hollywood. They, I don't know if it was Fusion Research or one of the other server manufacturers I talked to, they want to give money to these content owners, and there's no mechanism for them to do that. And it's just stupid. It's egocentric, I think, on the part of the Hollywood.
Well, and it's probably a bottom line thing where they think that they can make more money selling the digital downloads and the DVDs and this and the other. One thing, real quickly on that, the only DVDs I honestly buy anymore are for my kids, right? And we've gotten to the point where if I'm buying one, I buy one that has the Blu-ray, that has the traditional standard definition, and comes with some sort of download, right? Those are the ones I actively seek out, whether that's a Marvel movie or a Disney movie. I think Disney was the first ones I ever saw doing this, where they will give you a coupon, and it can be used for either iTunes, and now Disney has their own download store, and it helps you feel better. It helps you not feel like a pirate as you're going, okay, now I have 3 copies of this movie. That's exactly what I need, right? I need a Blu-ray, I need a standard def, and I need, I need to be able to get it on some device somewhere. So, alrighty. Last story here, and it's not really you guys can comment if you want, if you know Justin. But a good buddy of ours, Justin Cannington, has moved from Crestron DM, and he's moved over to AptoVision. AptoVision's Blue River AV over IP technology. And if you're not familiar with this, you will be very shortly, because one of the things that AptoVision is doing and is claiming is that they can get a full, relatively uncompressed 4K signal lower than on a pipe that's smaller than 10 gigs. I say relatively uncompressed. There's some interesting things they do with the information that they cut out, and then they do a small amount of compression to get it down to about 9 gigs, I think. If you're not familiar with that, is important. An uncompressed 4K is actually 17 gigs, so they're cutting a good 8 gigs out of that to get it down. So good for him, and as luck would have it, actually he'll be on AV Week this Friday. So I think it's a good move. good for him. So.
Well, I think it's something important to watch because HD-based T is having difficulty with a solution that'll
do 4K.
Sorry?
That'll do 4K?
That'll do 4K certainly with a single cable.
Yeah.
We don't see that happening. We did see at least one solution at ISC for getting a complete 4K 60, 444 over 2 cables. But I think we're going to start seeing some new companies and new technologies jockeying to replace HD-based T. Definitely interesting to watch.
Yeah, definitely.
I think this is an early shot across the bow that our traditional and somewhat newer video transmission technologies are living on borrowed time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that we can refer to HD-based T as traditional at this point.
It's the acceleration of tech, but I mean, again, it's what we've talked about is that there was a significant period of time where the AV industry was 15 years behind the tech industry, and that gap, because of IT, because of IP-based technologies, that gap is starting to narrow, and I'm sure that the major manufacturers as well as up-and-comers are. If they're not, they're going to be out of business very quickly if they don't go, hey, this newfangled IP stuff, maybe we want to take a look at it.
Yeah.
Speaking to the guy who ran his house along with fiber and everything else with mini RGB cables throughout his entire house.
Why did you do that?
Because at the time we still had analog video switching systems.
All right.
But there's fiber.
But there's fiber. It's probably multi-mode though, or single mode though.
Both.
Both, of course, there was. All right, that's going to do it for us.
Because I needed 3 miles of transmission in a small house.
Ms. Jacobson, thank you so much, ma'am. I always appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
How can people find you or CE Pro?
I'm at jjacobson at ehpub.com. Visit CE Pro at cepro.com. We've got a webinar coming up this Wednesday on best practices for networking in the smart home. And then a week or two after that, I'm doing the big ISC security show preview with trends in security and home automation.
Very cool. Very apropos, actually, based on some things we've had happen the last couple months. So, all right. Mr. Paul, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks. Pleasure to be here.
How can people get a hold of you?
So I can be reached at pwilliams@control4.com. And if they want to learn more about Control4, it's just control4.com.
All right, very good. Control4.com. And last but not least, Mr. Fregosa. Thank you, brother.
Oh, hey, my pleasure. And I'm glad to have some time in real space with you playing video games over the weekend. So, there we go.
R. Fregosa.
R. Fregosa.
Not everybody watches Rich, so you have to, yeah.
I'm going to point, yes, exactly. Yeah.
R. Fregosa is his Twitter, and he told me on Friday that he's going to update his website sometime this year.
Yes, considering, yeah. Well, that'll be the source of another show about how I wrote about how you kill your social media presence, and then I wound up doing the exact same things that cause it. Yeah. So, but you can find me there, or type in my name to any of the Googles or searches, and all kinds of different things show up, along with stuff that I've done for my boss here at cepro.com, and also Electronic House as of recently, and also State of Control. Next episode coming soon.
Sometime soon. Yeah, Greenblatt got married and got all crazy. So
yeah, we're doing something called working.
Yeah, there's that too.
Go figure. That darn work thing gets in the way.
That darn work thing, it does get in the way. My name is Tim Albright. Don't follow me, but go by the website if you would please, avnation.tv. avnation.tv, you'll find this program and a host of others. We have a brand new EdTech coming up. That's our education-focused show. And as I mentioned earlier, Justin will be on our weekly commercial show called AV Week. That happens on Fridays at this very time. So avnation.tv, avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. This has been ResiWeek.